So, good morning and welcome to the More with Stumpo podcast. I'm the host, Matt Stumpo, and today my guest is Mr. Wettrick. Mr. Wettrick, how you doing, sir?
It can be Don Wettrick from this point out. You're good.
Sorry.
You're good.
Sorry, I just remember calling you that from school all the time. So, a little bit of an intro about you from what I've found, and you can add on to it from whatever else. Founder and CEO of the StartEdUp Foundation, author of Pure Genius, which I am still waiting to get that copy of it, and then an innovation coordinator at Noblesville High School. Is that correct, sir?
No longer at Noblesville now.
Oh.
I'm running this full time, so I couldn't do both.
Really? That's awesome. So how long were you at, how long were you at Noblesville High School?
5 years.
5 years. And then
So yeah. So Greenwood 10, Franklin 5, Noblesville 5.
Okay.
Actually Greenwood 11. Anyway, yeah. 21 years.
21 years of teaching, and
Yeah.
you don't see retirement in your future at all.
Technically I did retire from teaching. Just running this is kind of what is that old saying? It's not work if you really enjoy it. So I've technically been retired since 1997. I just, never thought I was teaching as a job. I thought it was a fun experience. And now I run and really now I'm basically kind of a teacher for the state of Indiana. I work a lot in the innovation space. I work with a lot of other schools. I get to work with a lot of other students, just not in one classroom anymore. So that's kind of fun.
That's really cool. I never had you as a teacher. I never had the blessing of that, but I was always jealous of other kids that had you as a teacher. I always heard great things about you. Now, I did have some fantastic teachers while I was there at school, but I always was kind of jealous that I didn't have you because you listen to the students from what I remember. This was 10 years ago now. So you'd always listen to the students. You had great communication skills, which is what I definitely needed back in school. And you seemed more relaxed about the topics of education than a lot of my other teachers. And I just remember like being felt like I was stupid when I didn't know an answer, which, I mean, I'm not the smartest guy in the room whenever I walk into the room. So for me, I'm learning by getting my hands on things.
Well, I mean, it depends on what you call smart. And I think that may be the difference you're talking about in the sense that, like in the traditional sense, not as good students enjoyed my class because I rewarded things other than just compliance. So flash forward to, where we're at now, some of my most successful students, their GPA really was okay. Being compliant means you can memorize stuff. Well, the world doesn't need anything memorized because I can ask my phone now what the answer is. What the world wants now is doers. So right now you're doing a podcast. You're teaching yourself how to run a podcast. Okay, does that make you a good student? Kind of, but what it makes you is a doer. And so people are hiring doers. That's it. And I thought the interesting thing is when I was teaching back in the day that you knew me, I knew something was changing. I knew something was different, but I just couldn't reward just good compliant kids. Don't get me wrong. The kid that was driving me nuts. Actually, that's the funny thing is, though, I mean, like the kids that were giving me the most grief, I actually liked them the most because I'm like, I wasn't too far off from that when I was a kid. But two, I was like, I knew there was something different coming up. And it's interesting to see the world change. And now all of a sudden seeing colleges adapt, and all of a sudden you don't have to take the SAT. And all of a sudden they don't necessarily count the prom committee as a good service learning thing. They're starting to look for doers, man. And it's exciting.
That's really awesome. You said something, I was listening to a video that you did. I wrote it down, some notes. It's right here. You mentioned moving away from a diploma-based economy to a skills-based economy.
Yeah.
My question is, now I'm not saying I'm some sort of intelligent person who foresees the future, but I remember growing up and I remember asking the question to myself, and I did read this on the back of the book that that you wrote, is why are we learning this? Am I going to use this later on in my life? And there's so many times, and where I work at now, I'm still a fireman. There's so many times where I just crack the joke like, oh, I totally learned this in school. And there's no way you could have. And there's so many things that I believe in school that they should be teaching. Granted,
Yeah.
I'm a lot different. They should be teaching that we're learning about things that I have no reason why to know how it works, or why do I need to learn that when in life I'll never use it ever again.
Right.
So with the innovation class, that now it was you and another person that created it. Who was the co-founder?
Well, really, I mean, the class was an idea that was taken from a TED Talk 10 plus years ago from Daniel Pink. And he was just talking about what at the time Atlassian was doing, and then later a company called Google. They were giving their employees 1 day a week, 20% of their time, to pursue their own interest, and then their own, what do you want to know more about? What skills do you want to accomplish? And that was a spiritual awakening for me, because like you were just alluding to, I would be stopped all the time by parents. And by the way, I always admired the fact that parents were always willing to talk to me, because they'd kind of like, what they should teach in school, Mr. Wettrick. Because and I had the reputation, like I had a thing called Fiscal Fridays. So I would teach, Monday through Thursday, but about 20, this is when I was a middle school teacher, but like, we'd be reading The Hatchet, and I'd break down a really brief economics lesson: supply, demand, specialization of services, free trade. And I could integrate it through The Hatchet. But I could also talk about the stock market, because I knew that, what do kids like talking about? There's a variety of things, but you know what they all like? They all like money. And so like I started hearing like, what they should teach in school. And a lot of it was, here and there, but there's no way that you could teach all of those things. So I was like, okay, Daniel Pink said, great companies allow their employees 20% of their work week. So I started basically a 20% time years ago in my class, where I'm like, hey, on Fridays, you tell me what you want to learn. And that was really hard for some kids to accept, like A students. My C and D students were like, seriously?
Yeah.
Because because like if you were like, okay, seriously, I want to bring, we're talking, let's flash forward to 2021. But if you're like, yeah, I want to bring in my Nintendo Switch, and I want to learn how to master this move on what's the fighting game that's still popular? Super Smash Brothers. If like that's what you really want to do, fine, but you need to set goals. You need to have measurable goals. I need to know how you're making progress, and I need to know who you're learning from. Are you going to watch tutorials? Are you going to reach out to people? Because just saying you're going to do something means absolutely nothing. Saying that you're going to set goals and learn from others, well, then that's open sourcing your learning. And so that time that I had, all of a sudden, it became magical in the sense that our students were learning. It's just in some cases weren't things that we were teaching. But when we talk about open sourcing our learning, that's now crossing over to the other, saying of, well, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Okay, there, smart ass. If it's about who you know and we're complaining about it, the solution therefore is to know people. So I'd have my students go, hey, if this is what you want to learn, see if they'll call you back, reach out to them, see if you can set up a Skype call. And so we started then a class called Innovation and Open Source Learning. Innovation in the sense that I like you had, for maybe the first 5 or 6 weeks, I'd teach you, or I'd help you learn how to think for yourself. I'd help you identify what you thought was important, what you wanted to learn. I'd ask the question, if school didn't get in your way, what would you want to pursue? If you said, I wanted to learn how to play at least 3 chords quick, I'm like, okay, that's what you're going to work on. But who are you going to learn from? And then open source learning, find these people. And oftentimes they would start off with like, yeah, I want to learn how to, and it would be basic stuff. But all of a sudden they'd be like, once you pique someone's curiosity, then all of a sudden the world opens up. So instead of wanting to play 3 chords, which understandable, that's cool at first, all of a sudden you're like, wait. I think I want to be able to write my own song. Okay. Or some people, and a lot of times it came down, a lot of my projects ended up coming around tech skills. Some students were like starting to take a look at what the future lies. Well, what are people hiring? People were looking into that. Was it a coding language? Was it a certain skill? Was it being able to speak more confidently? Was it being a way to understand the stock market? Do you know what holds and puts are? Do you know what, when all of a sudden there's a smorgasbord of like, what do you want to learn? All of a sudden you're like, dude, there's so many things out there. And then you realize that so much of your time in the school day is dictated on things that they thought were important in 1809. You learning the Pythagorean theorem was important in 1809. I don't think it's important now.
I agree with that. I think that is really cool that you're able to see that. Would you see yourself more as the mediator for these kids' passions?
Well, I would be the one to make them thirsty first. You know, the old saying, well, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make him drink. Right. A great teacher makes you thirsty. Right.
Yeah.
So you're like, and all of a sudden you start opening up the world. You ask some questions. What the hell are you going to do after graduation? I don't know. Let's talk about that. And that's when anxiety kicks in. Right? Oh, I don't know. And I'm like, well, okay, you can either just not talk about it and get on Instagram and start going through your feed, or you can flex, you can show your abs. You're not going anywhere. So I started having these conversations, and I think that's the starting point. And then being that person that says, okay, teaching someone how to set goals, measurable goals, and measure them, and seeing if you're making progress, and not lying to yourself if you're not making progress. This is important. And, you know, I think that's where some of the success on this really started to kick in. It just, are you setting goals? Are you being honest with yourself? And what do you want to learn? And if you're like, I don't know, well, great. I can have you listening to TED Talks, reading some things. What are the valued skills out there? And ironically enough, they're the cliche things that we talk about: problem solving, being able to work in a team, being able to identify a problem so you can work with the team. And then I had this funny saying, I'm creating seekers and peakers, not moaners and groaners. The vast majority of people I know bitch and moan. I don't like this world. Okay. What are you doing about it? Are you seeking opportunity? And then that's where it gets really interesting, Matt, is that when you start becoming into a community of doers, you become peakers. Seeking opportunities is one thing. Peakers, they start getting together and they talk to one another, and they start noticing trends, and they can peek around the corner. They can see trends ahead of time. Some of the people that I'm blessed, I can't get over who I get to talk to and hang out with these days. They know what's going to be here in 5 years because they're peakers. And like, that's what the world is looking for. Are you solving problems? Are you making the connections? And really, innovators, that's what they do. Mm-hmm. They can see 2 or 3 points of interest, and then they see how they intersect. And, that's those people win.
I think that's awesome. I agree with that. It's something for, let's say, for the person that's listening today, if they want to be, you said a seeker, correct? You got the peakers and then seekers. So if they want to be somebody who's not really too motivated, what's something that they can do for themselves to kind of push them? Because a lot of people aren't really self-motivated, especially like when
no, because there's too many distractions, Matt.
Exactly. Which I remember I listened to one of your videos, and for a while you didn't have Twitter, or you didn't even have a smartphone.
I know.
Yeah, I thought that was hilarious because you were the tech guy, and I'm not very techie at all. I'm really trying my hardest to learn this, but you were the tech guy. You said in the video that you were Microsoft's innovative educator for Indiana, and you didn't even have a Twitter.
Yeah. Which
I have a Twitter, but I don't.
Well, I mean, this was years ago, but yeah.
That was also a while ago. Yes.
Yeah.
So with, excuse me, for these people I'm just wanting people to hear everyone else's message. And for one, I've been following yours ever since high school. And I think it's awesome what you're doing, but I want people to hear that they too can be doers. Because I mean, I'm not much of a doer. I'm a little bit of one, but everyone else, if they can step in and step up and challenge themselves, instead of just watching everybody else online do it and then just imagine what it would be like and how nice it is, that they can do it too. So what's something that you found that can help give them that extra push?
Sure. I'll give you 2 answers, and one will be kind of a guided meditation. Although just the term and guided meditation, one, I guess, remove some distractions. Stop comparing yourself to everybody. You or you. Your life is your life. What makes you happy makes you happy. If you're looking at other people and seeing what makes them happy, ironically, a lot of times those people aren't happy. Some of the happiest people I know, actually all the happiest people I know, lead a life of purpose. Okay, what does that mean? They're finding meaning and purpose in what they do, how they serve others. Stop comparing yourself. You do not need to create an app or start a business. You can have, like sometimes, Matt, I fantasize that if all this stuff doesn't work out, I would actually enjoy being a Walmart greeter. I like people and I like saying hello and I like dropping dad jokes. I swear to God, hey, welcome to Walmart. Hey, watch out for those falling prices. They might hit you. I mean, I would enjoy myself because I find meaning in connecting with people. I love people. So whether I'm running a foundation and I have social clout, is it cool that I have some social clout or a big following or a podcast? Yeah, it is. Only because I believe in my message. If I'm doing this for the fame, I'm really not that famous, so I'm not happy now, am I? Well, I'm not chasing that. I'm chasing my own happiness. Secondly, if you don't know where your happiness is, this is a little guided meditation. I used to say this a lot to high school students. The first thing I'd do is I'd pique their interest and I'd say, well, what I'm about to tell you is illegal. And they're like, oh, what's that? I said, okay, close your eyes. And I said, the first thing you do is you walk down to the filling station and you buy a lottery ticket. Now, I know that you're not 18 yet, but they're going to sell you one anyway. So it's kind of illegal. Or then maybe there were 18. There's a few students that were 18. And I was like, okay. And I said, you buy a scratch off and you win $2 million, which really by the time you cash it, it's about 1.1 million. I said, that is not enough for you to retire on. However, you can do whatever the heck you want for the next 5 years. It doesn't matter. I said, what do you do? And they want to give me some cliche crap answer. And I said, on a day-to-day basis, what do you do? They want to give me this awful answer like, oh, I'd buy my mom a house, or I'd buy myself a house. Okay, what do you do? You've bought the house. It's $1 million house. Now you're technically broke. You won't be able to afford the taxes next year, but what do you do? Okay, maybe not a house. Okay, I would invest it. Okay, what do you do? These are all answers that you're not telling me what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So once you strip that away, they're like, okay. I'd travel the world. Okay, what do you do? Well, I mean, I'd just sit on the beach and drink Mai Tais and look at the sunset. Really? You don't think that you're going to be jet lagged and bored after the third day? They think about it. Yeah. Well, maybe I'd travel a little bit at first. Okay. What do you do on a day-to-day basis? I'd just like to help people. It's my number one answer. What do you help them with? And then, Matt, they start thinking about what they're talented in, and then they start thinking about how their talents would match up. And oftentimes, when they describe what they would want to do to help, they're actually helping themselves. I've talked to kids that will tell me, like, my mom and dad don't even see me as a person. They don't know me. They don't know about some of the anxieties I have. And these are the kids who are like, you know what? I think I'd like to help teens with their anxiety. They don't even realize what they told me. And they all of a sudden start thinking of, if money weren't an object, how would I feel good? That is how you lead a life of purpose. You strip it all away. If money were no object, what would you do? Spoiler alert, in this country, you can make, this is where some of your listeners are going to be pissed off. Fine, be pissed off. Send your emails to dwettrick@gmail.com. You can make minimum wage and not starve in this country.
That's true.
I would rather make minimum wage and be happy. Oh, well, it's easy for you to say, Don. Okay, fine. But I do know people that have not great pay. By the way, people don't ever keep earning minimum wage if they're happy. There is a happiness advantage. BT dubs. So if I'm making not much money and I'm happy, I'm way better than that. than the golden handcuff person that hates his job, lives through the weekend, lives through making sure the Colts win, and doesn't like his wife and kids. Do identify what you're good at, see if it can make a life of purpose, and do that.
That's awesome. That's something that I think that if it was taught more in schools. Now, what I'm kind of upset is that you didn't have this program early on when I was in school, so that way I could have done more flourishing and kind of found out what potential that I myself have and other people that I went to school with as well. So I was saying that, how have schools reacted to your program? How have they been helpful? Have they been kind of sweeping you under the rug? How have the teachers unions been? Have you had any hurdles to jump through?
I've always had hurdles to jump through. I've never here lately, it's been, and I'm not saying this in some sick, satisfactory sort of way. It's been funny though, because the world is changing and I'm getting more people go, weren't you talking about this like 15 years ago?
Yes.
I'm like, so it wasn't well received at first. There were some teachers, you probably knew some of them, that were not a fan of my methodologies or style. And they were good people, by the way, but they went through school in the skill and drill, and don't talk about happiness, get them through there and make sure they pass the I step. And good for them. They were good people. So there was always some resistance, but now all of a sudden, the economy is the economy. And people like Daniel Pink, people like Mike Rowe, right? Yeah. People that were people that were saying getting rid of shop class is the dumbest thing in the world. These things are starting to turn back around. And it's been a lot more well received here lately. But awesome. it was a weird road at first, that's for sure.
That's awesome. When Central 9 came about, I'm sure you already know about it. Now there's other classes and buildings that are, I know, up north. There's Area 31, I believe, as well.
Yeah.
With Central 9, those are all career building courses, career building classes. I'm a product of Central 9. I am super excited that I can say that I was blessed enough to go there. My parents realized that me and my brother, we are not the guys going to college for, getting straight A's and anything like that, or even sports. We're going to be working with our hands. And Nick ended up going to college and getting a degree, which I think is awesome that he did that. He challenged himself. But Central 9 gave me a career that I do now. And I didn't have to pay anything extra for it.
Right.
So for you, do you think, I'm just kind of trying to see more into the future with what you're doing. Do you think that you'll be doing like your own, your own like Central 9 for innovation? Or is that what you already have?
So, I mean, in some ways, yeah, we try to get schools to integrate it. In some ways, like we've done this year with Innovate with it. So I run the state of Indiana pitch competition to, we're trying to encourage and foster innovation and entrepreneurship. So we have a free course out there. But I mean, here's the spoiler, Matt. Most learning that's going on right now is not going on in school.
Right. I'd agree.
Have people stopped learning since the pandemic? No. Kids are on YouTube. Matter of fact, I think game theory, I think MatPat have been, I think Mark Rober have been teachers of America, because these are guys that are going over theories and mathematical equations and science on YouTube, and they're getting millions upon millions of hits. Does Mark Rober need a building? No, it's a waste of his time and resources, because kids love what he does. Actually, adults love what he does. He's the guy that, the porch pirate glitter bomb thing. He's a teacher. So it's not necessary for him to have a classroom anymore.
So you're sticking more towards innovating online.
Well, I mean, we're also having people, if they want to integrate this in the classroom, we're giving them the resources. We're a big fan of, I mean, there are business classes, there are entrepreneurship classes. Is there innovation classes? Yeah, there are. And I'm happy to say that to my knowledge, we started the first one. Definitely started the first title innovation and open source learning class. That being said, There are more schools now that replicate it for sure.
That's awesome. So why do you think that teachers and parents push children to go to college no matter what?
It's because of what they did. It's because what they did. And I turned out just fine. That mentality. Well, your dad went to college. He hated he loved college. Yeah, he turned out just fine. And again, that duty and service mentality. Well, he doesn't like being and I'm not going to make fun of anybody's profession, but he doesn't like it, but it makes him a good living. Is it? Is it a good living where you don't like what you do? Well, there's honor in that good money. Okay. That's where you and I disagree, man. So, and the thing is that, like, your generation is the generation that will quit pressuring your kids to go to college. I promise you. By the way, it's already dwindling.
Yeah.
It's dwindling. Like Gen Z, millennials are like, they're the one. I feel more sorry, dude. I feel sorry for millennials more than any other generation, because they're the ones that had the rug pulled out from underneath them. They still had the old mantra of just shut up and go to college, and then the price got out of control. Mm-hmm. And then when they got out, they're like, "Okay, world, I went to college." And then the world was like, "We don't care." For a lot of professions, for some, absolutely,
yes. But
for the vast majority, there's a lot of majors out there that don't produce jobs.
Not at all.
Right.
Yeah.
So so your generation is going to stop guilting your kids into going to college.
That was something that I felt pretty strongly on when I would hear teachers tell me, "Hey, you need to go to college. You need to go to college. Start putting in apps for other colleges." And I would respond back with, "But what am I going to do? I have no desire to go to college and have a degree and a lot of debt that I know I won't be using for the rest of my life."
Right.
So with that, which I think the innovation program that you created was amazing. I'm glad that it's been very explorative with a bunch of other students and helping them find their passions. So I was also listening to another video that you said that you've had now, as of last year, you've had 4 patents come out of your innovation program. Those were from students?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you remember what they were?
One was like for an app, another one, and it was a procedure on the app. Another one was for the one that was the solar panel that dried clear. It was it was crazy. It was made out of photovoltaic material.
What?
Anyway, yeah, it's a long story. Another one was for ChatterEgg. Actually, she ended up taking that to IU and perfecting it. Yeah, we got the patent from it all started with a classroom discussion. She basically had we were talking about what, like, educational toys. And so she was talking to me about, what kids were liking. And I was like, well, as a parent, my little girls liked Baby Einstein. And then I was joking that, I had Weeble Wobbles when I was a kid, that you could punch something and it would go right back. And,
yes.
and then we jokingly said, you should combine Baby Einstein with Weeble Wobble. And that's what she did. She had a thing called ChatterEgg, which was basically a Weeble Wobble egg. And when you knocked it over, it would say a phrase in a foreign language. And each egg had a different ethnicity to it. So like the panda bear would say something in Japanese.
Really?
Right. And so, like, anyway,
awesome.
It really was. So
where can I buy that at? Because I
right. No, well, so like things happen. She gets the patent on it, and then she sees the cost of production. She's holding on to the patent, but she's working in Denver, and she's got herself a good job. She hasn't taken it to market. Because there's an idea, and then there's the startup costs, and
excuse me, my wife and I learned that last year. She has an amazing idea for what she wants to do for her business, and then we started doing more research on the startup. And I turned to her and I was like, "This will be a while before we get to start this."
Yeah,
and that's something that I thought it was great that she has some passion for it, and she did a lot of the legwork. She went and talked to people about the business ventures, and I only wish that she had. I mean, her whole family's full of entrepreneurs, but I only wish that we were able to get the money for it, and then just so that she could see her idea flourish. Because to watch her eyes when she would talk about her business idea just light up, and I could see the passion that she had for it, made me excited. So with you having this innovation program, talking to these kids, with them talking about their passions, after once they find out which one their passion was, did you just get a euphoric feeling of after you've helped these kids find their passions?
Yeah. Well, no, because I'm a cynical asshole sometimes. But I mean, like, okay, what are the next steps? This is like when you go to church camp and on the last night there's a campfire and you talk about how great of a person you're going to be. You're saying that because you're emotional. So when people find their passion, okay, what's the next step? You know, like put that down on the goal. What are your measurable goals? How do you know when you're making progress? How do you know when you're not making progress? And the thing is, and also conversely, like having the open mind to, if you're acquiring the skills, this is a really bad cliche, but it is the journey, not the destination. You know, your wife, her destination may be this business idea I have. The journey is, it may not happen yet, and that's okay. The journey is making it, like, still not letting it die, but realizing like this is really freaking expensive when we're not there yet. Okay, that's awesome. So like she's no longer not passionate. She's no longer not inspired by it. It just hasn't happened yet. So I would still recommend that she set goals and like maybe this and like map it out. Is this a 3-year thing? Is this a 5-year thing? Should I talk to a venture firm? Should I bootstrap it? Should I go to, a Kickstarter, whatever? But yes, I get a kick out of when a student is like, dude, this is it. This is what I love. I love it even more when I see them in 5 years and they're pursuing something like that, or at minimum have the mindset and have the peace of mind that what they're doing has meaning.
That's awesome. I know I'm sure you got a busy schedule today, so I'll try to keep this a little bit short. Out of all the years of you been teaching, and with this innovation program that you've started, what have you learned most, and what has stuck with you this entire time that you've learned about this?
Oh boy. Purpose and meaning mean the most. A life of purpose and a life of happiness reigns supreme. And you do that by seeking to serve others, solve problems. I think we're in the pit of hell on people identifying what they hate, dedicating hours to seeing what your least favorite politician said. I hate Trump, and I'm going to spend 5 hours looking through his tweets. Wow. It's like saying, I hate getting kicked in the balls, so I'm going to go around telling people to dare them to kick me in the balls. I hate Nancy Pelosi, so I'm going to keep tweeting at her and see if I can antagonize her. Well, why? Stop it. And people are like, well, you have to have awareness. True, but it's the doing part. Well, I'm going to go smash things downtown. Okay, how about you go and help people? Make that go viral. So in all of this, money gets confused with a life of purpose. It doesn't. And ironically, people that chase their purpose, money comes.
That's awesome. I think you hit the nail on the head with that one.
Cool.
Well, where can people find you at if on the internet? Twitter?
Ironically enough, I'm back. I took a good solid year off of Twitter, which the algorithm punishes you because, I got the blue check mark, and back in the day I'd make a tweet and I'd make a tweet and but now I'm like, I get 5 but Twitter's punishing me. I'm on LinkedIn a lot, or well, not a lot. I'm on LinkedIn too. If you want to see what Innovate Within is doing, that's innovatewithin.org, or our Facebook page. We can go to Facebook and then just type in Innovate Within. That's the capital IN on Within. And then, I got a podcast where I interview crazy people, successful people chat. Well, heck, the podcast I just released this morning, this woman has single-handedly punished Pornhub. They just recently had to purge 80% of their content because It was unverified and also promoting child trafficking. In a lot of cases was child trafficking. And this woman has been going maliciously after Pornhub. Had her on this morning, or I released it this morning. So I interview people like that. So you can always catch that. And that podcast is StartEdUp, all one word, because we treated education like a startup.
Awesome. And that podcast can be found anywhere podcasts are at.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, Mr. Don, thank you so much for coming on and talking. I really appreciate it, sir.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on, Matt.
I hope you have a good day, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sticking around to the very end of this video. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that little bell button if you're on YouTube. I'm also on Spotify, Anchor, almost anywhere podcasts can be found or listened to, except for Apple Music. I'm sorry. So if you have an idea of who else I can talk to, DM me or just send me a little comment somewhere letting me know who they are, and I'll try to reach out and see if I could talk to them. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for sticking around, and have a blessed day.